I'm a 24-year-old woman from the Midwest, and this is something I've been carrying with me for years. Honestly, I've never shared the whole story, not even with my closest friends. But recently, I've been reflecting on everything that happened, and I need to finally get it off my chest. It all began when I was 18, fresh out of high school and ready to start my life, or at least that's what I thought. Growing up, it was just me and my mom. My dad was never part of the picture, and my mom worked tirelessly to keep us afloat. We didn't have much, but we managed. I admired how hard she worked, even though we didn't always see eye to eye. She could be strict and distant at times, but I assumed it was because she was exhausted from working so much. Things began to change when I was 16. That's when she met Rick. At first, he seemed okay, polite, friendly, maybe a little too slick if I'm honest. He had 2 kids, Julia, who was 14, and Max, who was 12. About 6 months after Mom and Rick started dating, they all moved in together, and within a year, they got married. That's when everything shifted and suddenly I felt invisible. Mom started bending over backward for Rick and his kids, buying them new clothes, taking them to amusement parks, even letting Julia redecorate her room with brand new furniture, while I was still stuck wearing clothes I'd outgrown and using a desk we'd found at a yard sale years ago. It wasn't just the money or attention. It was how Mom made it painfully clear that Rick and his kids came first. When Julia turned 16, Mom threw her this enormous Sweet 16 party with catered food, a DJ, a fancy cake, the whole princess for a day vibe that I didn't even know we could afford. Rick invited half the town, and Julia ended the night with a brand new car. Meanwhile, on my 16th birthday, Mom made me a boxed cake, we had dinner at home, and no party, no car, not even a meaningful gift. Just a set of towels with the cruel remark, "You'll need them when you move out one for day." We weren't wealthy by any stretch, but somehow Rick's kids always got the VIP treatment. Then there was Max, who got into basketball, and Mom signed him up for every camp, bought him custom shoes, and even drove 2 hours each way for weekend leagues. I begged her for years to let me take piano lessons, but she always said no, claiming we couldn't afford it. It wasn't just favoritism. It felt like I was a second-class citizen in my own home. Every decision Mom made revolved around Rick and his kids. If I asked for something, it was always, "Maybe next time," or "We'll figure it out later." The hardest blow was when Mom and Rick sat me down and told me they were turning my bedroom into Julia's study space because she needed a quiet place to focus. I was forced to move into a cramped guest room at the back of the house that barely fit my bed and a dresser. Julia wasn't even using the study space properly. I'd often catch her taking selfies or making TikToks in there. But the worst came after I graduated high school. I had been working 2 part-time jobs for over a year, saving every penny I could for college. By graduation, I had saved $6,500, not a lot, but enough to cover my first year of community college plus books and supplies. I was proud. Then, just weeks before classes were to start, I checked my bank account and saw it was completely empty. All my money gone. At first, I thought it was a mistake or a hack, but the bank told me the money had been withdrawn by someone with access to the account. My mom was the only other person on it. I confronted her, shaking as I asked if she took my money. She didn't even flinch, just nodded and said, "Yes, I used it like it was no big deal." When I asked why, she said Rick needed help paying for things for the kids since they were starting school too. I couldn't believe it. She'd taken every dollar I'd saved for my future to buy clothes and supplies for Julia and Max. That was the moment I realized she didn't see me as her daughter anymore, just someone to use when it suited her. After everything with my mom, draining my college fund, I packed up and moved in with my cousin Sarah. Honestly, that was one of the hardest yet best decisions I've ever made. I didn't have a backup plan or anything. I just knew I couldn't stay in that house anymore. Sarah has always been my safe place. She's 10 years older than me and lives about 30 minutes away in a small but cozy apartment. When I called, her crying and explaining what happened, she didn't hesitate. "Come here," she said. "Stay as long as you need. We'll figure it out." When I arrived, I was a complete mess with just one suitcase filled mostly with clothes and a few random things I threw in last minute. Everything else I left behind, I didn't even feel like it was mine anymore. What was the point? Sarah didn't pry or ask too many questions, which I really appreciated. She just hugged me, handed me a blanket, and said, "Let's order pizza." The first few days were rough. I felt lost, like I didn't know who I was anymore. My whole life, I thought I had a supportive mom, even if she wasn't perfect. But after what she did, I couldn't trust her anymore. And honestly, it wasn't just about the money. It was about what the money symbolized: my hard work, my future, my independence. And she took it like it was nothing. Sarah was a lifesaver. She dragged me out of bed on days I just wanted to lie there, telling me, "You're not going to let them win by giving up." She helped me make a plan. Find another job, figure out my next steps for school. I ended up working at a coffee shop near her place. It wasn't glamorous, but it helped me start rebuilding my savings and gave me something to focus on besides feeling sorry for myself. Over time, I realized how much resentment and anger I'd been carrying. I wasn't ready to forgive my mom, and honestly, I probably never will be, but I didn't want those feelings to consume me either. Setting small goals helped a lot. At first, I just wanted to save $500 to open a new bank account that Mom couldn't access. Then I saved enough to pay for one community college class. Eventually, I registered part-time and took a couple of courses. It wasn't the college experience I dreamed of, but it was progress. Living with Sarah was a completely different vibe. She treated me like an adult, never made me feel guilty if I couldn't chip in for groceries or rent, and always asked what I wanted instead of making decisions for me. We had a Friday night routine, ordering takeout, sitting on the couch, and watching whatever silly reality show was on. It wasn't much, but it felt like home. Meanwhile, I barely heard from Mom. When she did reach out, it was never to check in, but more like, "I hope you're thinking about coming home soon," or "We need to talk about how you're going to contribute to the family." It was like she didn't even realize I left because of her. I didn't respond to most of her messages. What was I supposed to say? Thanks for ruining my life? I did hear bits and pieces from my Uncle Dave, who I'm still close with. He told me Rick was still the king of the couch while Mom worked overtime paying for everything. Julia joined an expensive cheerleading team, Max was getting private guitar lessons, and Mom got Julia a new iPhone for her birthday. I rolled my eyes so hard I think I pulled a muscle, but honestly, I stopped caring. They had their perfect little family, and I had my own life to figure out. By the time I turned 20, things were finally looking up. I'd saved enough to transfer to a university about an hour away and move into a shared apartment with some other students. I could finally breathe and focus on my future. One of the biggest surprises about leaving home was how much my mental health improved. I hadn't realized how much stress I'd been carrying until I wasn't living under the same roof as Rick and his entitled kids. By graduation, I landed a decent marketing job. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my life together. I was paying my own bills, living in a cute studio apartment, and starting to see a future that didn't involve constantly looking over my shoulder for Mom's approval. Then, out of nowhere, Mom decided to reappear. It started with a text. "Hey, we need to talk. Call me when you have a second." I didn't want to. After everything, why would I open that door again? But she called, and I picked up, hesitant. Big mistake. The second I answered, she launched into her pitch. Julia was starting college. Dorm life wasn't working for her. It was too noisy, and she needed her own space to focus. I already knew where this was headed, but I let her keep talking. They'd been looking at apartments near campus, nice one-bedrooms renting for $1,500 a month, really affordable for the area. Then came the bombshell. She was hoping I could help with the rent. "You're doing well now, right?" she asked. I nearly laughed out loud when she asked if I could cover $1,500 a month for Julia's apartment. Was she serious? Apparently, yes. She sighed like I was being the unreasonable one, and then backpedaled slightly, suggesting maybe just $1,000 a month instead. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, Julia isn't my responsibility. She's not even my sister." "She's your stepdaughter," I said, trying to stay calm. "She's family," she snapped back, her tone sharp and defensive. That word, family, set me off inside. This was the same woman who tossed me aside the moment Rick and his kids became part of the picture. Now she was suddenly preaching family values? I asked why Rick couldn't help out, or why Julia couldn't just get a part-time job like most college students. Mom, of course, jumped to their defense. Rick's doing the best he can, she claimed, and Julia needs to concentrate on her studies. A job would distract her. I couldn't hide the sarcasm in my voice when I replied, right, because no college student in history has ever balanced school and a part-time job. She brushed it off and fed me the same old line. It's not forever, just until we figure things out. I'd heard that before, back when she drained my college fund. That rough patch had stretched into years of neglect and favoritism. No, I said firmly, I'm not doing it. She didn't take it well. She launched into a tirade about how ungrateful I was, ranting about how much she'd sacrificed for me growing up, basic parenting like buying clothes and groceries, as if she deserved a trophy. I kept my cool and said, "You didn't do me a favor, Mom. You did your job." That only made her angrier, but I stood my ground and ended the call. You'd think that would have been the end of it, but with my mom, it never is. She launched a full-blown guilt campaign. First came the pity texts about how hard everything was for her and how much pressure she was under. Then she pulled in reinforcements, my Uncle Dave. He called me one night acting casual but quickly got to the point. Your mom's really upset. She said you're refusing to help with Julia's apartment. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, Dave. Because it's not my problem. He tried to soften the blow, saying maybe I could help just until they got on their feet. I nearly laughed. They've been getting on their feet for 7 years now. How long is that supposed to take? He didn't have an answer. Instead, he tried the classic family sticks together speech. She's still your mom, he said. Don't you think you're being a little harsh? I repeated his words in disbelief. She drained my college fund and ignored me for years. Now she wants me to fix her mess? No way. To his credit, Dave didn't push too hard after that. He mumbled something about not wanting to be in the middle and hung up. But it still stung, seeing how easily she pulled him into her guilt trap. And then came the biggest surprise, Julia herself. I hadn't heard from her in years, but suddenly I got a text from her that practically oozed entitlement. Hey, I heard you're not helping with my apartment. Not sure why you're being so difficult. It's not that much money for you. It's just rent. Just rent. Like $1,500 was pocket change. I didn't even bother replying. She'd always been the golden child, and clearly nothing had changed. After that, Mom doubled down. She sent me a long-winded text full of guilt and manipulation, accusing me of tearing the family apart and sabotaging Julia's future. She even claimed my refusal to help proved I never cared about them. I was furious. How had I suddenly become the villain in this story? She was the one who chose Rick and his kids over me for years, and now because her golden child needed something, I was the heartless one. The worst part? The guilt started creeping in. I knew I wasn't wrong, but her words dug into old wounds. I caught myself wondering if maybe helping just this once wouldn't be so bad. So I talked to Sarah, and without missing a beat, she shut that idea down. Don't even think about caving, she told me. This isn't about Julia's future. It's about control. Your mom can't stand that you're independent now, so she's trying to drag you back in. She was absolutely right, but the emotional weight of it all was still hard to shake. That's the tricky thing about family. They know exactly how to get under your skin. My mom had conditioned me for years to feel responsible for her problems, and even now it was a struggle to break that mindset. But then came the final straw. A week later, my mom left me a voicemail that was textbook emotional blackmail, playing the victim, flipping the story, and trying to paint me as the bad guy. For a second, it almost worked. I sat there listening, feeling this toxic mix of anger, sadness, and guilt. I called Sarah again and told her about the voicemail. What do I do? I asked. Her answer was clear. Block her. If she won't respect your boundaries, then you have to protect your peace. And so I did. I blocked her number, her emails, even her social media. For the first time in years, I felt free. truly in control of my life. I knew deep down this wasn't the last I'd hear from her. She's not the type to back down quietly, and I had a feeling she still had a few tricks up her sleeve. But for now, I was done. Thanks for reading, Reddit. I'll be back with more soon because trust me, it only gets messier from here. Update 1. So guess who decided to join the circus next? Rick. Honestly, I hadn't thought much about Rick since I moved out years ago. He was more of a background nuisance, someone who talked a big game but never actually delivered. So when he suddenly decided to step into the situation, I should have known a storm was brewing. It began with a random phone call from an unknown number. I wasn't thinking clearly that day, so I picked up. The second I heard his voice, "Hey there," spoken like we were lifelong pals, my stomach churned. I hadn't spoken to him since I left home. "What do you want?" I snapped, skipping any fake niceties. "Your mom tells me you're refusing to help with Julia's apartment," he said, voice calm but laced with a passive-aggressive edge. "That's right," I replied, keeping my tone cool. Rick let out one of those fake laughs, the kind that screams, "You'll regret this." "I don't think you understand the situation," he warned. "Oh, I understand perfectly," I shot back. "You want me to foot the bill for Julia's apartment because she's apparently too delicate to live in a dorm." "Not happening." That's when the mask came off. "Let me make this clear," he said, his voice tightening. "Your mom is under enough stress already. If you don't step up, you're going to push her to her breaking point. Is that what you want?" My jaw dropped. My part? Was he serious? I wasn't the one making promises we couldn't afford. That was on him and my mom. But Rick didn't back down. "This isn't about promises, it's about family. You're part of this. Family, whether you like it or not." I nearly laughed. "Rick, you and I both know you've never considered me family. I was just the inconvenient attachment that came with my mom." That clearly hit a nerve because his tone went ice cold. "You've always been ungrateful," he snapped. "We took you in when your mom was barely scraping by, and this is how you repay us?" That was it. I lost it. "Took me in? That was my house before you ever showed up. You barged in with your kids and acted like you owned the place. I didn't need you, Rick. I needed a mom who actually gave a damn." He went silent for a beat, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd stunned him. But of course, he came back. "You can play the victim all you want, but here's the truth. If Julia doesn't get that apartment, everything is going to fall apart. Your mom can't handle the stress, and I'm not sticking around to watch her crumble because of you." His words floored me. Like I was the glue holding their circus together, like my refusal to pay rent was the reason everything was unraveling. "Let me ask you something, Rick," I said calmly. "Why don't you pay for the apartment? Or better yet, why doesn't Julia get a job like the rest of us? I worked my tail off to save for college, and you two stole that from me. Why should I give up more for her?" Of course, he dodged the question and pivoted to his usual nonsense. "This isn't about money," he claimed. Hilarious, since money is all he ever talks about. "It's about priorities. Julia's education is at stake. Do you really want to be the reason she fails?" That was it for me. "You're right. Rick," I said. "This isn't about money. It's about how you've freeloaded off my mom for years while pretending to be some kind of patriarch. Newsflash, you're not. You're just a deadbeat who can't support his own kids." That shut him up, briefly. "You've got a lot of nerve talking to me like that," he growled. "And you've got a lot of nerve asking me to pay for something that has nothing to do with me," I snapped. "So we're even." Realizing he wasn't getting anywhere, he ended the call with one last pathetic guilt trip. "I hope you can live with yourself," he said, "because when this all blows up, it'll be on you." Then he hung up. I sat there, not sad or shaken, just furious. Who did he think he was trying to bully me into paying for his daughter's apartment? But that's Rick's whole game: manipulation, guilt, and pressure until he gets his way. And when he can't get it from me, he goes for my mom. But I was done cleaning up their messes. I'd wasted enough years trying to fix what they kept breaking. Thanks for reading, Reddit. I'll be back with more soon, because trust me, this mess was far from over. Update 2. Hey Reddit, back again. I honestly thought Rick's manipulative guilt trip over Julia's apartment was the peak of it, but I was wrong. What came next proved just how far he was willing to go. A couple of weeks later, I got a message from Uncle Dave. He's usually the type to steer clear of drama, so when he texted, "Hey, can we talk? It's about your mom." I knew something was wrong. I called him, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "Your mom's in a tough spot right now." I rolled my eyes so hard I almost strained something. "Let me guess," I said. "It's about Julia's apartment." "It's a bit more complicated than that," Dave said, and instantly I knew things had escalated. Turns out Rick had given my mom an ultimatum. Either she found the money for Julia's rent or he was walking out. He flat out threatened to leave her if she didn't come through. And honestly, I wasn't surprised. Rick's specialty has always been leeching off others, and now he was threatening my mom with abandonment unless she bent to his will. He'd been riding her coattails for years while she juggled everything to keep the household going. And now he was dangling his presence like some kind of prize. "Does she really think he's going to stick around after this?" I asked. "I don't know," Dave admitted. "She's terrified of losing him. She's scrambling to figure out how to make it work." I was furious, not just at Rick for being the manipulative freeloader he'd always been, but at my mom for enabling him for so long. She had bent over backward for this man and his kids for years, and now he had the nerve to pull this stunt. A few days later, Sarah called me. Apparently, Mom had reached out to her, practically begging for help, not financial help, because she knew Sarah wouldn't go for that, but emotional leverage. She tried to use Sarah to get to me, repeating things like, "Family needs to stick together," and "He'll regret turning his back on us." Typical manipulation. I laughed bitterly and told Sarah, "She's still trying to guilt me into cleaning up Rick's mess." Sarah added that Mom sounded really stressed, like she was unraveling. But I didn't feel bad. Not anymore. She had made her choice years ago when she chose Rick over me, and now she was facing the fallout. Still, part of me was curious. I wanted to see just how deep Rick's manipulation really went. So, against my better judgment, I called her. When she answered, her voice was drained. "I was wondering if you'd call," she said. I got right. To the point. "Is it true? Is Rick seriously threatening to leave you over that apartment?" She hesitated, clearly not wanting to admit it, but finally muttered, "He's just under a lot of pressure." That set me off. Pressure? He hasn't worked in years. You've been paying for everything. How is this pressure for him? Her voice weakened. "He's doing his best." "No, he's not," I snapped. "He's using you, and now he's dangling your relationship over your head to get what he wants." That hit a nerve. She got defensive. "You don't understand. Rick loves me. He's just trying to do what's best for Julia." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "If he loved you, he wouldn't treat you like this. This isn't love, Mom. It's manipulation." She went silent and then finally said, "I just need to figure this out. I thought you'd want to help, but I guess I was wrong." I hung up. There was nothing more to say. Over the next week, Dave kept me updated. Mom had started dipping into her retirement savings just to cover the cost of Rick's apartment. She was so desperate to keep him that she was risking her future for him while he was out partying and drinking like life was grand. Meanwhile, she was working overtime, stressed to the bone. Then Dave called again, sounding almost amused. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "Try me." Rick left her. Turns out he packed up and vanished, taking half of what little savings she had left, and her car, which she'd technically signed over to him years ago. I didn't feel sorry for her. She'd let this man walk all over her, and now she was paying the price. But a small part of me grieved for the mother she used to be, the strong woman who once worked so hard to give me a good life, before Rick ever entered the picture. I haven't spoken to her since. Sometimes I wonder if she'll try to apologize, but even if she did, I'm not sure I'd be able to forgive her. That's where things stood, until recently. A while passed, and I wasn't planning to post again. But a few people called me out for leaving things on a cliffhanger, so here's an update. First, thank you to everyone who offered support and advice. It's been strangely comforting to know others have gone through similar situations. Eventually, Mom did reach out, texted me from a new number out of the blue. I hadn't heard from her in weeks and assumed she wouldn't try, but there she was, messaging me like nothing had happened. Then she called. I didn't answer. Her voicemail caught me off guard. She sounded different, not defensive, just tired. I know I've made mistakes. I really need to talk to you. Please call me back. I debated whether to respond. Curiosity got the better of me, so I texted back, "What do you want to talk about?" She immediately replied, asking to meet in person so she could apologize. That stopped me in my tracks. My mom apologizing? I agreed to meet, neutral ground, a coffee shop halfway between us. When I saw her, she looked smaller, like life had finally caught up with her. We sat down, and she started shakily. "I owe you an apology. For everything, for taking your money, for pushing you away, for choosing Rick over you. I know I was wrong." But hearing the apology didn't bring the closure I'd hoped for. I think I stopped waiting for it a long time ago. She continued, "Rick manipulated me. He made me think I had to choose between you and him to hold our family together. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I see how much I hurt you." I stayed silent, guarded. She went on, "I can't undo the past, but I want to fix things if you'll let me." That's when I finally spoke. "I appreciate the apology, but it's not that simple. You hurt me. It's going to take a lot more than words to fix that." She nodded, tearing up. "I understand." I asked her why now, why she was coming, back after everything. Her answer hit hard. "Because I have no one else. Rick's gone. Julia and Max won't talk to me. I realized I pushed away the only person who ever truly cared." I wasn't sure if it was honesty or another form of guilt tripping, but it left me emotionally conflicted. "I can't do this right now," I said. "I need time to think." She agreed, and we parted ways. That was a few weeks ago. Since then, she sent a few messages, updates, the occasional "I miss you," but I haven't responded. I'm still processing. Reconciling who she is now with who she used to be is difficult. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust her again. What I do know is that I won't let her back into my life just because she's finally ready to apologize. Forgiveness is messy and complicated. Right now, I'm focused on myself and the life I've built without her. Maybe someday we'll rebuild something, but that day isn't today.